Hello everyone, this is B. Uday Kumar, working as an assistant professor of physics in Dr. B.R.R. Government College at Chella. As you are aware that in our previous video lessons, I have started the chapter electrostatics. So even today, we try to continue the topics of the chapter which is electrostatics. So fine, so let us move on to our next slide. So fine, so these are the topics that I am going to deal today. Okay, so by using Gauss law, today we will try to determine the electric field intensity due to a line charge of infinite length, and also we will try to determine the electric field intensity due to a charged cylindrical conductor, and if time permits, we also cover the electric field intensity due to a charged cylinder. Okay, so these are the topics that we are going to deal today. Okay, so let us move on to the first topic of today's video lesson. Okay, so fine, so right, so this is our first topic of today's video lesson. We will try to determine the electric field intensity due to a line charge of infinite length. Okay, so to find E due to a line charge of infinite length, first of all we will understand what is a line charge. Okay, so what is a line charge, that you can understand with the help of this diagram or image. So you can see here, right, so there is a line on which the charge is uniformly distributed. So this is called as a line charge. Okay, so if its length is finite, it becomes a line charge of finite length, and if its length is infinite, it becomes a line charge of infinite length. So find what is line charge. It is nothing but a charge which is uniformly distributed on a line is called as a line charge. So the charge that is distributed on a line can be positive or negative. For convenience, I have taken here the positive charge, okay, positive charge which is distributed on this line. Okay, so as you already know that the electric lines of forces are directed outwards for positive charge. So for this system of line charge, the electric lines of forces will be like this. So diagrammatically, the electric lines of forces for positive charge are always directed outwards, and hence for this system of line charge, the electric lines of forces will be traveling outwards from the line charge itself. Okay, so this is the front or side view. So that means if I see this line charge from side or front, the electric lines of forces are shown like this, are seen like this. Okay, so if the same, that means remember the electric lines of forces are not just traveling towards right and left, right, they are directed outwards. That means in all the directions the electric lines of forces will be coming outwards. Okay, so if this system of charge, if this system of line charge is seen from top, that means the top view of this system of charge in terms of electric lines of forces will be seen like this. Here you can see here, so this is the positive charge, positive line charge which is seen from the top, and since it is of positive charge, all the electric lines of forces are directed outwards, right? So if that system is seen from the top, the electric lines of forces will look like this. So these are the electric lines of forces of this system of line charge that are seen when we see from the top. Okay, so I just have drawn few lines here, but actually the electric lines of forces will be even in between. Okay, but they will be directed outwards, so that you try to understand. Okay, so anyway, so this is a line charge, and how the electric lines of forces of that line charge are traveling in this case are seen in this slide. Okay, I hope it is clear. For negative charge, if the negative charge is distributed along its line, the electric lines of forces will be directed inwards, not outwards. Okay, so you just try to understand the direction of electric lines of forces. Why this is important? Because the electric lines of forces direction will be the direction of electric field intensity. Okay, for that reason you have to understand the direction of electric lines of forces, because while using Gauss law we need to determine the direction of electric field intensity also, and for that reason we are trying to understand the direction of electric lines of forces for this system of charge. So anyway, since the charge is distributed along the length of a line, so please remember this is important. Since the charge is distributed along the length of a line, this system is purely an example of linear charge distribution. Okay, so you know the different types of charge distributions, right? There are three kinds of charge distributions. One is linear, another one is surface, and third one is volume charge distributions. So this one is purely an example of linear charge distribution, and hence whatever the derivations that we do, that can be studied or understood in terms of linear charge density, so which is denoted by lambda. So this is linear charge density. You know the definition of linear charge density, right? Which is charge per unit length. So that means we can understand this entire system or study this entire system, or we can write the equation of electric field intensity of this system in terms of lambda, so that you try to get it. So how do we determine lambda? So to determine lambda, so the definition of lambda is known to us, which is charge per unit length, right? So for example, so this is of infinite length, right? And hence that means I don't have the quantity of length here and the charge that is present on this infinite line of charge. Anyway, to find lambda, what we do, we just take any element of this line charge. For example, if I consider this element here, so if I take the length of this element as L, and if I take the charge, the total charge that is present on this element as Q, so to find lambda, what we do, we just divide Q with L. So this becomes the linear charge density of this system. So anyway, this is how we determine lambda. So anyway, so to find the electric field intensity by using Gauss law, so these are the basic things that you need to understand: the direction of electric field intensity for this linear charge distribution or line charge, and similarly how can we write the linear charge density of this line charge. So these basic things you need to understand. Okay, now so let us move on to our next slide. So now let us move on to the derivation part. So how do we determine the electric field intensity due to a line charge of infinite length? So let us assume that this is a line charge of infinite length. Okay, so let us assume that this is our system of charge, line charge of infinite length. So to determine electric field intensity, in case of Gauss law, I already told you to follow certain steps. Okay, so what are these steps? I hope you remember. Okay, so first one is that you have to choose the point P where you want to find the electric field intensity. Okay, and let us assume that the point P is at a distance of small r. So this is the first point. So even in our previous videos we have determined the electric field intensity due to point charge and spherical conductor and charged sphere. Even there we followed the same steps. I request you to remember those steps, because even that means almost 6 to 7 topics are completely depending on these steps only, this concept only. So if you remember those steps, the derivation will be very easier too. Okay, so anyway, so first of all we have to choose a point P where we want to find the electric field intensity, and let us assume that the point P is present at a distance of small r. Okay, so here I have assumed that this is the point P where I want to find the electric field intensity, and I have taken its distance from the line charge by small r. Okay, I hope it is clear. I just erase everything. Okay, and what is our next point? To find the electric field intensity, the next point is going to be we have to construct a Gaussian surface which is symmetrical and which also passes through the point P. Okay, so this is our second step in this topic, to determine the electric field intensity, okay, while using Gauss law. So what is our next step? We have to construct a closed surface here which is symmetrical. So please check it out. We have to construct a symmetrical closed surface which we call it as Gaussian surface around this system of charge in such a way that this closed surface has to pass through point P. Is that clear? So now what is the closed surface that I can construct here? I can construct a sphere, I can construct anything, whatever I want. But remember, if I construct a sphere here, what happens? It will not be the symmetrical closed surface. Okay, so the closed surface must be symmetrical. Okay, the Gaussian surface must be symmetrical. Anyway, in this case, the symmetrical Gaussian surface will be a cylinder of radius smaller. Okay, so please check it out. So this is going to be the Gaussian surface that that is symmetrical and it is also passing through point P. Okay, so is it symmetrical? I hope you got it, because it is symmetrical, because if you consider any point along the curved surface of this cylinder, for example, if I consider this point, it is at a distance of small r, and if I consider this point, it is also at a distance of small r. If I consider this point, this is also at a distance of small r. So this r is same for all the points of this cylinder on its curved surface, right? On its curved surface, each and every point is present at a distance of smaller. So this is nothing but the symmetrical nature. The environment of that Gaussian surface is same when you see it from the line charge. So this we call it as symmetrical Gaussian surface here. In this case, it is going to be a cylinder. Okay, I am just erasing it. And the next one. So what we have to do, the next one is that after constructing the Gaussian surface, you have to choose a small area element at point P. Okay, and that area element is taken by ds. So that is our next point, right? Choose a small area element ds at point P. At point P, you have to choose the small area element. So this is our next point. So let us draw that one. So this is going to be the small area element that I have chosen. Can you see this one? So this is ds, which I have chosen at point P. And what is our next point? So now at point P, you have to draw the directions of E and ds. So this is our next point. So draw the directions of E and ds at point P. Okay. So you know that already in our previous slide we have seen that for positive charge, the electric lines of forces are directed outwards, right? Since they are outwards, even at point P, the direction of electric field intensity will be outwards. Okay, so that you try to make it. So this is the importance of the electric lines of forces that we have discussed in our previous slide. Okay, so that slide is helping here. That slide is helping us here to determine the direction of electric field intensity. Okay. So anyway, the directions of E and ds are shown here. So please check it out. This is the direction of E at point P, and this is the direction of ds at point P. Okay. So actually at point I have drawn ds as side by, but even here also the direction of ds will be like this. So what is ds? ds is the small area element which I have chosen at point P, and remember ds is a vector quantity and its direction will be perpendicular to area itself. Okay, so that we call it as area element, area vector. So E and ds both will be along the same direction here. So that means the angle between E and ds will be 0 now. Okay, and what is our next point? So you just write the mathematical equation of flux that is passing through ds at P and find the total flux using Gauss law. Okay, so now you know that this is positive charge, right? Positive line. Okay, positive line charge. So you know that electric lines of forces are directed outwards. Okay, even here also the electric lines of forces will be directed outwards, but these lines of forces are not inside the Gaussian surface, so that you try to get it. Okay, but we have to, that means whatever the Gaussian surface that I have drawn here, we have to consider only the charge that is present inside this Gaussian surface. So and hence now I am drawing the electric lines of forces that are passing through this closed surface, Gaussian surface. So please check it out like this. So these are the electric lines of forces that are coming out of this closed surface, coming out of this Gaussian surface. So now the total number of electric lines of forces that are coming out of this Gaussian surface is called as total flux, right? The total number of electric lines of forces that are coming out of that Gaussian surface, we call it as electric flux. But to find the electric flux, what we have to do, first of all, we have to write the mathematical equation for the total number of lines of forces that are passing through area element ds. Okay, so this is the area element ds. Few lines will be passing through ds also. Few lines, not all. Few lines will be passing through this area element, right? And that number of lines of forces, we call it as flux passing through ds, and it is denoted by d phi. So this is the flux that is passing through area element ds, which is denoted by d phi e, which is equal to E dot ds. E is electric field intensity and ds is the area element that we are choosing. So that means the flux that is passing through ds is denoted by d phi or d phi e, which is equal to the dot product of E and ds. So this you have to understand. So now to find the total electric flux, what we do, we just integrate this equation. Okay, so if I integrate, so this is the equation that we have taken it from our last slide. So this is the flux that is passing through area element ds. So to find the total electric flux, what we do, we just integrate this equation. If I integrate it, I get phi e. So now I can write phi e as integral d phi e, which is equal to integral from equation 1, d phi e is nothing but E dot ds, right? So you just write it down. So the surface integral can be either denoted by integral with respect to s, or closed integral, or surface integral. This is closed integral, right? Integral with circle, so we can denote in any way. So these two representations are same. In your examination you can write any one of them. Okay, that's it. So now since we know the dot product of E dot ds is written as E ds cos theta, where theta is the angle between E and ds. Remember, E and ds are along the same direction here, that means theta will be 0, so that you try to get it here. So anyway, now substituting in this case, since theta is equal to 0, substitute that value here. So now coming to this one, so this is phi is equal to integral E ds, and we are substituting 0 in place of in place of theta. So if I substitute, so I get cos 0 in place of cos theta. So but you know that cos 0 is 1, and hence if I substitute 1, I just only get integral E ds. So now you can take E outside the integration because it is constant now. It is constant. Is that clear? You know why we can take it out, because as you can, that means if you observe this diagram, so point P is present at a distance of r, right? And the electric field intensity at point P is E only. But if the same point P is taken on this side, okay, even this point will be present at a distance of r, but its direction is it will be towards left. So that means if you take any point on the curved surface of the cylinder, Gaussian surface, that point is going to be at a distance of smaller, okay, but their directions will be different. And okay, is that clear? So if you consider any point on the curved surface of the cylinder, that point is going to be at equal distances, which is r. So that means at those points the magnitude of electric field intensity will be constant, but its direction will be different at different points. So that is the reason why we cannot take this electric field intensity outside the integration. But here I can take E outside the integration because it is the magnitude of electric field intensity. So since magnitude is a constant here, from the diagram you can take it out. If I do it, so I get E integral ds. So now phi E, that means the total electric flux becomes E times integral ds is the curved surface area of this Gaussian sphere. Remember, this is the curved surface area. This is the curved surface area. Okay, so that curved surface area for a cylinder is given by the formula 2 pi RL, where R is the radius of the cylinder and L is the length of the cylinder. So now I have considered here the length of this Gaussian cylinder by L, small l, and hence the curved surface area of the cylinder will be equal to 2 pi RL. So if I substitute that equation, I get the total electric flux as phi E is equal to E times 2 pi RL. Okay, I hope this is up to here it is clear. So let us take this equation as 2. So now we have found the total electric flux that is coming out of this cylinder. Remember, it's a line charge of infinite length, and hence all the lines will be directed outwards. Okay, so and hence no line of force will be coming out of this upper surface and lower surface, and hence I am not considering that flux. That means only the flux will be coming out of this cylinder from side, that means from the curved surface of the cylinder, and hence here I am substituting in place of integral ds as 2 pi r L only. This is the curved surface area of the cylinder, not total surface area, because the flux will be coming out of the cylinder only from curved surface, not from the upper and lower surface of the cylinder. Okay, so that's it. Anyways, this is equation number 2. But we know that from Gauss law, the total electric, this is total electric flux that we have derived for this system, and the total electric flux I can write it as 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by it. This is from Gauss law. Okay, 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface is equal to the total electric flux that is coming out of the closed surface. So this is Gauss law. So anyway, actually initially we were not knowing the total charge that was present on that line charge, right? So now let us assume that the charge that is present inside this Gaussian cylinder is plus q. Plus q is what? Plus q is the amount of charge that is present on this line charge, within this length L. So please check it out. Within this length L, the amount of charge that is present on this line charge is taken as plus q. You can take anything else. You can take q dash, capital Q, q0, anything you want you take it. Choice is yours, but I am taking here it as some q, plus q. Okay, so that means by Gauss law I can write the total electric flux as 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by it, and that charge enclosed by this Gaussian cylinder I am taking it as plus q. Okay, now substitute 2 in 3. So that means on left hand side we have phi E, right, which is equal to E times 2 pi RL. If I substitute that, what do I get? I get this as E times 2 pi RL. This is flux, right? E times 2 pi RL is equal to Q by epsilon 0. And if I send this 2 pi RL to right hand side, what do I get? I get it as E is equal to Q by 2 pi epsilon 0 R times L. So this is the equation that I am going to get. You can stop here itself if you want. But as I already mentioned in the at the beginning of this topic, since this line charge is the example of linear charge distribution, we can study this system in terms of lambda. We can study this system in terms of lambda, which we call it as linear charge density. I already told you this one, right? So that means I can write this electric field intensity in terms of Q or in terms of lambda. So what is this lambda now? I already told you, right? So what is lambda and how do we determine it? So that means if I take this element of this line charge, so that means within this length the total charge present is q, right? So now lambda will be equal to q by L. So from this formula I can write this as q is equal to lambda times L. So that means if I substitute this formula in this equation, what do I get? So there is q in numerator and L in denominator, right? So that means in place of q by L I can replace it with lambda. So I can write the electric field intensity in terms of lambda, which will be equal to lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 r. So this is the electric field intensity due to a line charge of infinite length, which we have found by using Gauss law. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Okay, so and okay, let us move on to our next slide now. Okay, so please remember this formula, because this is going to come even in our next topic also. Okay, fine. So let us move on to our next slide, which is next topic, which is the electric field intensity due to a charged cylindrical conductor, which is also called as hollow cylinder or cylindrical shell. You can call it in any way that you want. Okay, anyway, so what is a charged cylindrical conductor? First of all, we try to understand that this is charged cylindrical conductor, and we have to find the electric field intensity due to a charged cylindrical conductor. Okay, so what is a charged cylindrical conductor? So a conductor which is in the form of cylinder, we call it as cylindrical conductor, and if charge is given to that cylindrical conductor, it is called as charged cylindrical conductor. That's all. So this is the image which is nothing but charged cylindrical conductor. So remember, it's a conductor. This is a conductor which is in the form of cylinder, so we call it as cylindrical conductor. That's it, right? And if charge is given to it, what happens? Since it is a conductor, the entire charge will be uniformly distributed on its surface only. Surface only. Is that clear? So please remember this point. We already discussed this in our previous topics, previous videos. Even here also we are discussing the same. Since it is a conductor, since this cylindrical conductor we have here, whatever the charge that is given to it, it will be uniformly distributed on its surface, and this we call it as charged cylindrical conductor. Okay, the cylindrical conductor consisting of some charge on it, we call it as charged cylindrical conductor. So if you give it if you give positive charge to it, it will be having positive charge on its surface, and if you give negative charge to it, it will be having a negative charge on it. Okay, so this is a charged cylindrical conductor. Anyway, so this is the front view or side view of the charged cylindrical conductor that you see, and since I have taken positive charge on its surface, the electric lines of forces are directed outwards, which you already know how they are looked, that you can see here. The electric lines of forces will be directed outwards. So this is the front view of charged cylindrical conductor in terms of electric lines of forces also. But if the same diagram is seen from top, so the top view looks like this. So this is the charged cylindrical conductor. Remember, it's a conductor, as I already told. The positive charge will be present only on its surface, not inside it. Okay, the charge will be present only on its surface, and the electric lines of forces will be directed outwards in all the directions. So this is the charged cylindrical conductor that looks like when we see it from the top, and these are the electric lines of forces that looks like when we see from the top. Anyway, so here what you have to understand is that which kind of distribution, charge distribution it is going to be. Okay, so this charged cylindrical conductor is an example of linear charge distribution and also surface charge distribution. So remember here, whatever the charge that is given here, so this one, or otherwise you just take it. So this is whatever the charge that we are giving to this cylinder, it is distributed along its length, right? So that means this is an example of linear charge. This is going to be an example of linear charge distribution. And also whatever the charge that we are giving to this cylinder, it is completely and uniformly distributing on its surface, right? So that means it is also going to be an example of surface charge distribution. So since this charged cylindrical conductor is an example of linear charge distribution, we can study or we can derive the electric field intensity in terms of lambda, which is called as linear charge density. And since this is also an example of surface charge distribution, we can derive the electric field intensity in terms of sigma also. Okay, so that you have to understand here. This is the basic thing. Once you know the basic thing, you already know how to determine E by using Gauss theorem, so that you can do it easily. Okay, now so let us move on to our derivation part. So let us assume that this is a charged cylindrical conductor of infinite length, okay, and whose radius I have taken it as capital R. Remember, capital R is the radius of charged cylindrical conductor, the radius of charged cylindrical conductor. So now to find the electric field intensity, we need to follow certain steps. You already know that. First one is we have to choose the point P where you want to find the electric field intensity and take its distance by small r. Okay, you know that. So let us assume that this is the point P where I want to find the electric field intensity, and the distance of this point P from this cylinder is taken by small r. So please check this out. This is small r, and remember the distance is always measured from the center of the system, right? Here the center of this system, which is cylinder, is nothing but the axis of the cylinder. So that means the distance of this point P from the axis of the cylinder is taken by small r. And remember, there is one more r here, which is taken as capital R, which is nothing but the radius of the cylinder. Okay, and the next one, I have chosen point P. Now what we have to do, we have to construct a Gaussian surface which is symmetrical one in such a way that it has to pass through point P. Anyway, what is going to be a symmetrical Gaussian surface here? That is going to be again a cylinder. Okay, so that you try to get it here. So that is going to be again a cylinder, but that means we have two R's here. One is small r, another one is capital R, and there is two cylinders. We are going to have two cylinders now. One is the charged cylindrical conductor, which is the real cylinder, and another one is the Gaussian cylinder. Okay, so that you try to get it. Anyway, so this is the Gaussian surface, closed surface, which is a symmetrical one, which I have drawn here in such a way that it is passing through point P. Okay, so that now there are two cylinders. One is real cylinder, which is a charged cylindrical conductor. Another one is Gaussian cylinder. So this is imaginary. Actually, it will not be there, but it is an imaginary. Why we have to construct it? We are constructing it only to apply it for Gauss law. Okay, so fine, that's it. Anyway, next point is what we have to choose a small area element at point P. Okay, so choose a small area element at point P, and that area element here is taken as ds. So this is the small area element that I am choosing at point P. And the next, what else I have to do? I have to draw the directions of electric field intensity and the ds at point P, right? So draw that. So draw the directions of E and ds at point P. And what are the directions at point P? It is going to be outwards. You already know, we have seen the directions of electric lines of forces, right, which are directed outwards. So that means at point P, the electric line of forces will be coming out of this Gaussian cylinder, which is directed outwards, right? Anyway, and ds is also directed outwards here. You know why, right? Because ds is the direction of the area element that I am choosing, and this direction is going to be perpendicular to the dx itself. Okay, so now that means from the figure it is clear that both E and ds are along the same direction, and hence the angle between E and ds is going to be 0 now. Okay, so now what else we have to do now? So now you know that there is some positive charge inside this Gaussian cylinder. Is that clear? There is some positive charge. This is the positive charge that is present inside the Gaussian cylinder. Let us assume that this total charge is Q, and let us assume that this total length is L. I am mentioning here itself because these two things are these two things we are going to use in our next slide in derivation part. Anyway, since there is some charge that is present inside this Gaussian surface, all the electric lines of forces will be directed outwards, coming out of that Gaussian cylinder, right? All the electric lines of forces will be coming out like this. So that means few electric lines of forces will be coming out of this ds also, right? So few electric lines of forces will be coming out of this ds area element also that we have chosen, and that flux we write it as d phi, and if I integrate that, I get the total electric flux that is coming out of this Gaussian cylinder. Okay, so now what we have to do, I have to just simply write the mathematical formula of the electric flux that is passing through ds, and after writing that you just integrate it. So what is the flux that is passing through ds? I am using it in all the topics, right? So this is denoted by d phi e, which is written as the dot product of E and ds now. And remember, to find the total electric flux I have to integrate this equation. So let us move on to our next slide. So this is the integration, the derivation part. So anyway, whatever the point that I have chosen, it is present outside the cylinder, right? So this is our first case. This point is present outside the cylinder. Okay, outside the cylinder. Which cylinder? The real cylinder. Charged cylindrical conductor is the real cylinder, and we are trying to find the electric field intensity of this cylinder at a point P outside it. So when point P is present outside this cylinder, then small r will be greater than capital R. If you observe this diagram, this is small r, right? And this is capital R. And from figure, this is also capital R. Small r will be greater than capital R. And the flux that is passing through ds is written as d phi is equal to E dot ds. To find the total electric flux, what we do, we just integrate it. So that means phi e will be integral d phi e, which I can write it as integral E dot ds. This is also denoted by like this, and E dot ds is nothing but the dot product of E and ds, and if I expand it, I get E ds cos theta. But from the figure we already mentioned, which is theta is equal to 0. What is theta here? The angle between E and ds. Since they are directed outwards, the angle between them will be 0. So that means in place of theta, if I substitute 0, what I get? I get phi is equal to integral E ds cos 0. But what is cos 0? It is 1. Substitute that. If I substitute it, I get integral E ds, and you just take E outside the integration because it is constant. I already mentioned it. I am not going to repeat it. So if I take E outside it, I get E integral ds. So what is integral ds here? Integral ds is the curved surface area of the cylinder. Actually, in our previous videos I was saying that it is total surface area, right? Here also I get total surface area, but why I am taking only the curved surface area here? It is because the lines of forces are coming out of the Gaussian cylinder from curved surface only. From curved surface only. So the lines of forces are just coming out of the cylinder in outward direction only, not in upward direction, not in downward direction. That means from the upper surface of the Gaussian cylinder, no electric line of force is coming out. Even from lower surface of the cylinder, no electric line of force is coming out, and hence the total flux that is coming out of this cylinder, Gaussian cylinder, is only from the curved surface, and hence I am writing the value of integral ds as the curved surface area of the cylinder only. Okay, so that means I get phi is equal to E times 2 pi r l. So now this is the total electric flux that is coming out of this Gaussian cylinder. So you know that. So now use Gauss law. What is Gauss law? The total electric flux coming out of a closed surface will be equal to 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by. So use that Gauss law. So I have determined flux, which is equal to E times 2 pi r l. So and this flux is equal to 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by the closed surface. This is Gauss theorem, right? So now let us assume that the charge that is present inside this Gaussian cylinder is Q only. This is plus Q. What is Q? Q is the charge that is present inside this cylinder within the range of the length L. That's it. Okay. So from the figure, can you see this one? This plus, this plus, this plus, this plus, these 4 plus, and these 4 plus. This is the charge that is present inside the Gaussian cylinder, and that charge I am taking it as Q. Okay, so that means the total electric flux I can write it as 1 by epsilon 0 times the charge enclosed by the Gaussian surface, and this charge I can choose in any way. I can choose it as Q dash, Q double dash, anything, but anyway I am here choosing it by Q. So now substitute 2 in 3. If I substitute it, what I get on left hand side, you get E times 2 pi RL, which will be equal to Q by epsilon 0. So from 2 and 3 I can write it as E times 2 pi RL, which is equal to Q by epsilon 0. Remember this slide, whatever we are dealing now, it is almost same of the last topic that we have done. Okay, so even for line charge of infinite length, the derivation was almost same, not almost, maximum same. But of course the only difference between the previous topic and this topic is that there are only that means in case of line charge we used to have only one case, but here in case of charged cylindrical conductor we can find the electric field intensity at a point P outside, on and inside. That is the only difference between these two topics that we are going to deal today. So anyway, if I send 2 pi RL to right hand side, I get E is equal to Q by 2 pi epsilon 0 times RL. Okay, and you already know that the linear charge density I can write it as Q by L. So that means in place of Q by L, I can simply write it as lambda. So if I write Q by, lambda in place of Q by L, E becomes lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 R. That's it. And I already told you that this is, that means charged cylindrical, I am erasing everything. Charged cylindrical conductor is an example of linear charge distribution and also surface charge distribution. I mentioned this, right? And hence I can write the electric field intensity in terms of Q and in terms of lambda and in terms of sigma also. To write the electric field intensity in terms of sigma, what we have to do is that first of all you have to apply the formula of sigma. What is sigma? I already told you. This is the definition of lambda, which you get by dividing Q with the total length. And similarly, whatever the charge that is given to this charged cylinder, it is uniformly distributed on the curved surface area of this cylinder. Okay, so now the sigma of this charged cylinder is written as charged per unit area, right? So whatever the charge that we are giving here, what is the charge that we assumed it was there, that is Q, right? I assume that I have taken that the charge that is present inside this Gaussian cylinder, I have taken it as Q, right? So to find sigma, what is the definition of sigma? It is charge per unit area. So to find charge per unit area, you have to divide the total charge with its area. Okay, so the total charge that is present on this cylinder is Q, so just write that Q and you divide it with its surface area. Okay, its surface area. As I already told you, the charge is present only on curved surface area, and hence here we have to substitute, we have to divide Q with curved surface area only. Curved surface area of what? The real cylinder, charged cylindrical conductor. Charge is present on charged cylindrical conductor, not on Gaussian cylinder. So please check it out, there are two cylinders here. Charge is present on charged cylindrical conductor, not on Gaussian cylinder. So that you have to understand, Gaussian cylinder is an imaginary cylinder. Actually it is not there. Only to apply Gauss law we just construct it, that's all. So now since the charge is present on this cylinder and the radius of this cylinder is how much? Capital R, right? Since the radius of this cylinder is capital R, its curved surface area I can write it as pi r square and its length is L. So this is the formula for the surface charge density of the cylinder. So that means I can write sigma, pi r square L is the volume of the cylinder. It's my mistake, so please rectify it. So the curved surface area of this cylinder is going to be 2 pi RL. 2 pi RL, pi r square L is the volume, sorry, it's my mistake, so please check it out. Sigma is nothing but charge per unit area, and since the charge is present on its curved surface area, I can write this as q by 2 pi capital RL. So I have mentioned it here. So that means from this equation I can write q as sigma times 2 pi RL. Okay. So now in place of q, for example, this is the equation that I got, right? So I'm just writing it down. So I can write E in terms of q, in terms of lambda, in terms of sigma. So in place of q, if I substitute sigma times 2 pi capital R L and divided by, what do we have here in denominator? We have 2 pi epsilon 0 small r L. What do we have? So L gets cancelled and 2 pi also gets cancelled. What else it will be left? So it will be sigma by epsilon 0 capital R by small r. So this is going to be the left out quantities in the equation of electric field intensity. So this is electric field intensity in terms of q, in terms of lambda, in terms of sigma for a charged cylindrical conductor at a point P outside it. Okay. So now if you want to find the electric field intensity at a point P on its surface, what you have to do, we have already have done it for previous cases, right? So substitute small r is equal to capital R, you are going to get the electric field intensity now. So please check it out. This is electric field intensity at a point outside the cylinder, right? This is lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 small r. And when you substitute small r is equal to capital R, what do you get? You get the electric field intensity at a point P on the surface of the cylinder. So in place of small r, if you substitute capital R, what you get? You get lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 capital R. And when small r is equal to capital R, these two gets cancelled, right? So just substitute small r is equal to capital R, you automatically get the electric field intensity at a point P on the surface of the cylinder. So when P lies on the cylinder, you know that small r is equal to capital R, and if I substitute small r is equal to capital R, I am going to get E as lambda by 2 pi epsilon 0 capital R, or sigma by epsilon 0. So this one is the electric field intensity at a point P on the cylinder. And now let us try to determine the electric field intensity at a point P when it lies inside the cylinder. So this is our real cylinder that we have considered. If point P is present inside it, what is going to be? So this is the, let us assume that the point P is present here at a distance of small r. What we do? We just construct a Gaussian cylinder here like this. Okay. So now let us assume that the charge that is present inside this cylinder is some q dash. You can take it as q dash, right? But from the figure it is clear that no charge is present inside this Gaussian cylinder. Okay, no charge, because whatever the charge that we are going to give to this charged cylindrical conductor, this entire charge is going to reside on its surface, not inside it, and hence no charge will be present inside this charged cylindrical conductor, and hence obviously when there is no charge, the flux coming out of this cylinder will be zero. That means electric field intensity will be zero at a point P inside the cylinder. Anyway, that you can understand clearly. So now let us assume that there is a point P which is present inside the cylinder. If I choose that, the diagram will be like this. So that means the Gaussian cylinder will move inside the charged cylindrical conductor. So now if you apply electric flux, what I am going to get? So this is the equation that I am going to get, right? Integral E dot ds is equal to q by epsilon 0. You may take q dash also here. So now the total charge that is present inside this cylinder is taken as either q or, but we already have taken q, right? And hence you can write it as q dash or q double dash or anything. Okay, you can take q also, there is nothing wrong, because we are going to substitute it by 0. So anyway, integral E dot ds, I can write it as q dash by epsilon 0, but here q dash is 0 because no charge is present inside this cylinder. No charge. You take any point, this point, this point, this point, whatever the point that you want to take inside the cylinder, this point, and so on. Any point you want, you take it. At that point, the electric field, that means electric field intensity is going to be 0 because there is no charge that is present inside the cylinder. So since there is no charge that is present inside the cylinder, q dash will be 0, and hence if I substitute, that means if I solve integral e dot ds, what I am going to get? I am going to get e 2 pi rl, right? And if you send 2 pi rl to right hand side, you are going to get e by 0 only. Okay, so this is electric field intensity at a point P inside the charged cylinder. Anyway, since the time is up, okay, so we will deal the electric field intensity due to the charged cylinder in our next topic. I hope whatever we have dealt now, it is clear to you, and please remember the electric field intensity of the charged cylindrical conductor, whatever we have done today. That derivation is going to be repeated even in our next topic. Almost all the derivations, that means we have 3 cases here, right? Even in case of charged cylinder, we will have 3 cases. Out of those 3 cases, 2 cases will be similar. So please remember this derivation. It will help you in our next topic. Okay, I will stop here. Thank you once again.